So the Bhagavad Gita was actually spoken on Moksha Ekadashi, which was yesterday. And I wanted to read a little bit from this. Let me announce this special night here. On this 8th day of December, 2019 in SanDiego, we were speaking in honor of the advent of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita about 5,000 years ago at the Sunday Krishna Fest. Hare Krishna. So I want to read a little bit about from the Srila Prabhupada's preface. Because you know a preface is... Oh, let me put this on pause. Okay. I'll read a bit, let me begin again. This is the 8th day of December, 2019. We're in SanDiego at the Krishna Fest in honor of the advent of the Bhagavad Gita, which was spoken 5,000 years ago on Moksha Ekadashi, which was yesterday. And I'm going to read a little bit from the preface. The preface is part of the book where the author explains why he wrote the book. And so Srila Prabhupada, in his inimitable way, I'll read this one section here. Our only purpose in presenting this Bhagavad Gita as it is in order to guide the conditioned student to the same purpose for which Krishna descends to this planet once in a day of Brahma, or every 8,600,000,000 years. Now, Krishna only appeared 5,000 years ago, which is practically yesterday in comparison to this. So we're very fortunate. This purpose is stated in the Bhagavad Gita itself, and we have to accept it as it is. Otherwise, there is no point in trying to understand the Bhagavad Gita and its speaker, Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna first spoke this Bhagavad Gita to the sun god some hundreds of millions of years ago. We have to accept this fact and thus understand the historical significance of the Bhagavad Gita without misinterpretation on the authority of Krishna. To interpret the Bhagavad Gita without any reference to the will of Krishna is the greatest offense. In order to save oneself from this offense, one has to understand the Lord as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as he was directly understood by Arjuna, Lord Krishna's first disciple. Such understanding of the Bhagavad Gita is really profitable and authorized for the welfare of human society in fulfilling the mission of life. And then Srila Prabhupada explains how this Bhagavad Gita is integral to the spread of the Krishna consciousness movement. So before I elaborate on that, I'll offer my obeisances. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Shri Parampara. So the Bhagavad Gita, of course, means the song of God. And as Srila Prabhupada indicates at the very beginning on the title page, Gita Upanishad, it's the Gita Upanishad, which means that it is the summary in only 700 verses, which is very short. The Srimad Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses. And this Bhagavad Gita is only 700 verses. Now you can understand that it had to be short. They're speaking on a battlefield, which is about the last place you would expect to have a spiritual discourse. But there's a very important point of that. Krishna is on the chariot, and Arjuna has an existential crisis because his friends are on the other side. He's the main warrior on the side of virtue, represented by himself and his 5 brothers. His elder brother Yudhishthira was the son of Yamaraj, or Dharmaraj, means the lord of Dharma, or virtue itself. So on the other side, there was a Duryodhana and his 99 brothers, sons of Dhritarashtra. And they had conspired to take over the throne. The actual rightful heir was Yudhishthira, the eldest son of Pandu. It's a long story told in the Mahabharata, which is a very long epic, very important history of India. And the Bhagavad Gita forms 18 chapters in that very long book. There's only 700 verses. But these 700 verses, as I mentioned, summarize the entire teachings of the Upanishads. And they're really very essential. In fact, in his introduction here, which is in itself a wonderful literary work and has been published separately as a little book. I don't know if you know that. Srila Prabhupada spoke this introduction and recorded it before he came to 26 2nd Avenue. Just so there would, then the tape recorder was stolen, but the fools didn't realize that the real treasure was the tape upon which this was recorded. And we have that recording. You can actually hear Prabhupada speaking. So we're very fortunate they left the tape. So at the end of this introduction, Srila Prabhupada quotes from the Gita Mahatmya, which I believe was written by Shankaracharya. But there's some very nice verses here. And he begins with, it says, Gita Sugita Kartavya Kima Nyai Shastra Vistarai Yasvayam Padmanabhasya Mukha Padmat Viniksrita. And Prabhupada explains, because the Gita is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself, one need not read any other Vedic literature if you don't have time. You at least read Bhagavad Gita. One need only attentively and regularly hear and read the Bhagavad Gita. In the present age, people are so absorbed in mundane activities that it is not possible for them to read all the Vedic literatures. But that's not necessary. This one book, the Bhagavad Gita, will suffice because it is the essence of all Vedic literatures, and especially because it is spoken by the Supreme Lord Himself. Then this is my favorite. Sarvo Panasha Gavo Dogda Gopalanandana Parto Vatsak Sudir Bhokta Dugdam Gitamritam Mahat. The Gita Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita, the essence of all the Upanishads is just like a cow. And Lord Krishna, who is famous as a cowherd boy, is milking this cow. Arjuna is just like a calf, and learned scholars and pure devotees are meant to drink the nectarian milk of the Bhagavad Gita. So, Srila Prabhupada explains in his preface and other places that it was necessary to write this Bhagavad Gita as it is, because Bhagavad Gita had been known in the West already. There, in fact, on the back of this book, we've been quoting David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson, two American writers who read the Bhagavad Gita in the 19th century. They were authors. How did they get the translation? Because the English were ruling India for so long, and some of them were scholars, and they learned some of the culture and they translated it. And so, even though it wasn't Bhagavad Gita as it is, it was undoubtedly probably a mere translation rather than a commentary. They still appreciated a little bit, somewhat, of the great importance of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. So Srila Prabhupada explains in his introduction that the Bhagavad Gita will teach us the truth of these 5 essential elements. The first is the Ishvara, which is God Himself. The next is the Jiva. Who are we? What is the soul? The next is time. What is the force of time, which Krishna reveals in the several places in the Bhagavad Gita, most famously in the 11th chapter. Kalosmi loka chayakrit pravidho. He says, I am time. Now if you read the Bhagavad Gita, the 11th chapter is in a different mood. There Arjuna asked to see this universal form, and Krishna shows him a form that is not a form that Arjuna feels like a friend to. It's a very powerful form. He's devouring all of the other soldiers, and he's got many eyes and very fierce and frightening. And so Arjuna finally says, well, who are you? I don't recognize you as my friend Krishna. And says, I am time, and I have come to destroy everything. You see? So how does time work, and how does how is time an energy of Krishna? That's explained in this Bhagavad Gita. Then another very important subject here is Prakriti, or nature. What is this nature that we live in? How does it work? And how is it related to Krishna? And then the last element is karma, or activity in general. And how the karma, our activities, determine our destiny. Because after all, our lives are made up of deciding to do one activity and leaving millions of other activities aside. And the choices that we make and how we interact with other people in this world and other living entities in general, everything else, that will determine our future. The first teaching of Bhagavad Gita is that you don't die. Isn't that good news? I mean, the Bible is known for the gospel, and my little understanding of that is that gospel means good news. What could be better news than that? The Jayate Mriyate Vakadachan. For the soul there is never birth or death at any time. Has not come into being, is not coming into being, will not come into being. We are as eternal as Krishna. There's uncounted zillions of us, Some of us are here on this planet Earth. Some even a smaller set are here in SanDiego, and a very tiny little set are sitting in this room right now. But nobody's going to die. But we're going to think we die because if we identify with the body. The body is born, stays for some time, may produce children, and then dwindles, and then passes away, never to be seen again. But the soul, the body is not the self. The soul or the Atma is the self. This is Krishna's first essential lesson. And along with that lesson comes the truth of karma, the law of karma. And what we're experiencing now is largely determined by what we've done in the past. And what we're doing now will largely determine what we experience in the future. Doesn't this broaden our perspective of what's important in life? If we just concentrate on this one life, we're missing out. We're we're completely in the dark. So Krishna's teaching us the most important questions to ask about life, and he's giving us the answers. The first question is, who am I? The next question is, how can I live and work in this world for my best destination, where I can achieve, as Arjuna famously says in chapter 2, text 7, Yakshe aksyan nishtitam bruhi tanme. Oh Krishna, please tell me how I can achieve the ultimate good. Shreya means the ultimate value in life. People don't ask that question. We're absorbed in these relative little values determined by what's pleasing to my body or mind or emotions at this particular time. But that's all very relative and passing and fleeting. What is the permanent reality? Is there such a thing? And if so, then I want to achieve it, my ultimate good, how I can be happy forever. It sounds like a fairy tale, but it's not. The fairy tale is that we could be happy in this world and trying to adjust the material things. Haven't you noticed? I've been around a little longer than practically everyone in the room. I was always the youngest. In first, second, and third grade, I was the youngest because I was born in December. My birthday's coming up. And so, anyway, and then I skipped a grade. So then I was always the oldest, Oh no, I was the oldest, and I became the youngest in each grade. You understand what I'm saying? I skipped the grade. So the question, is always, well, what can I do to get ahead? What can I do to go to the top of the class or something, whatever that is. But what's the use of it? After all of that striving, and now I've come to this old age. Now I'm actually older than anyway. I'm going to be 72 in about a week by the solar calendar. My actual birthday was just the day before Moksha Ekadashi, which just passed, the lunar calendar. So now someone may look at my life, well, what did you achieve, really? You have practically no money, no status, you don't have any fame. I never got married. I get wearing this for 45 years, and so I have no children. What do you got? A complete failure. And then but we're not measuring our life by some materialist speculation. I think I've taken a few steps anyway. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go back to Godhead in this life to get rid of all vestiges of material desire. But Krishna is very encouraging. He says, don't worry, nothing is lost. Right in the second chapter. This is such a wonderful verse. I remember when I first read it, I said, well, that's a big relief. Neha bhakkamanashosti pratyavayo navidyate. He says, in this endeavor of Krishna consciousness, the process of bhakti yoga, which is the central teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, that a little advancement on this path, just a little bit, protects you from the most fearful danger. Balaram, what's the most fearful danger? To lose the human form of life. This treasure that we all have and we take for granted, which is that's one of the things Srila Prabhupada teaches right at the beginning, to really value your human life, which is very rare. We can see all around us so many millions and millions of different kinds of insects and birds and fish right nearby. They can't understand Bhagavad Gita. They can't practice Krishna consciousness. They're just automatically going through their life and gradually coming up to the species until they come to the human form. Only in the human form can we contemplate these most important questions and lead our life in such a way that we can break free of our animal past, if you like. In other words, we all have the animal part of us, the part which needs to eat and sleep and mate and defend. We share that with the animals. What makes us different? Dharma. There's a verse. There's a nice book called the Hitopadesh, which means instructions for the benefit of humanity. Actually, all of our books are like that. Why was the Bhagavatam spoken? Because the sages at the beginning of the Kali Yuga, they could see with their transcendental vision the degradation of the age, and they wanted to figure out what could be done about it. And what came out of that was the Bhagavatam itself. But Bhagavad Gita is the same reason. Who doesn't know? Anyone who has any kind of background in Indian, born in India or a child of someone, do you not know this verse? Yada yada dharmasya glanim bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam sujamyaham. Prakash, I know you know that verse. No, you don't know that verse. I know. So Krishna is explaining why he comes. Whenever and wherever there is a discrepancy in dharma. Remember, Arjuna was confused about his dharma. He didn't know what was the right thing to do, and so he was paralyzed. It says, Karpanyadoshapahatasuprichami tvam dharma samuda cheta. My consciousness is confused about what's the right thing to do. This is a great concern. It should be concern for every human being. How can I do the right thing, not only for myself, but for everyone related to me and for humanity at large? This is real dharma. So Krishna comes in order to reestablish dharma, in order to protect his devotees, in order to wipe away the miscreants and those who are trying to destroy dharma in this world. Why is he concerned? I mean, isn't he happy comforting up in the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan? What does he need to come to this place for? It's very hard to find, even if you go to Vrindavan now, it's kind of covered. It's not like it was 5,000 years ago. Why should he come here? Because he regards us, as we really are, as his eternal children. He claims us as his children. I am the seed-giving father of everyone. And so like any parent, and he's the supreme parent, he always has that concern and love for his children. And he sees us that we've wandered away, we've completely forgotten, and we're suffering like anything. We think we're maybe enjoying a little bit, but just wait a while. Time itself, as I mentioned, this is one of the subjects here, will take away everything that we value. This is, again, Prahlad's teachings. We're burning he's saying, I'm burning in an ocean of lamentation caused by the fact that material life means that the things you treasure the most, our body, those who are dear to us, are eventually taken away from us. Who can deny it? By time. And those things which are most frightful and most abhorrent, which we try to avoid even thinking about, are eventually forced upon us. That's material life, if we look at it soberly. Because we don't know about spiritual life, we like to try to forget those things. Otherwise we'd be completely neurotic. Krishna allows us to forget. But that's not a solution. That's the ostrich solution. There's a lion running at me from 200 yards away. I can't outrun the lion. Well, here's my solution. I'll just put my head in the sand, and I've got a good, 20 seconds, and I can just forget and enjoy, Now we do it maybe, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, but those things are coming at us. This is material life. This is life in this world. Krishna says he doesn't mince any words. There's no time to mince words. The battle's about to begin. He says, Mamupecha punar janma dukale mashashratam. One who comes to me does not have to come back to this world, which is an abode of dukkha, of misery. That's the nature of this world. There are little bits of happiness that we can glean, which leads us to try to forget the miseries. But ultimately, here comes death, here comes disease, here comes climate change, here comes Trump. Oh my God. Is there anybody in this world who's not in anxiety because of this guy? Except the devotees? Anyway, I don't have so much time. So, Prabhupada gave us this Bhagavad Gita. He worked so hard. The history of this Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada wrote it in India, back in the 60s. 60s, I think in the 50s, he had a full manuscript of the Bhagavad Gita. Someone stole it. We don't know how, or who. What to do? So Prabhupada, he kept writing the Bhagavatam, eventually came to America, and he rewrote the whole thing. He wrote it by, Prabhupada would type. He had this ancient typewriter, not a Selectric, not even an electric, just a manual typewriter. He would type with 2 fingers all of his books until he came to America, and eventually he got some followers, and they introduced him to the dictaphone, the dictating machine. So that sped things up, but it meant you had to have a typist, and then who could hear? Prabhupada's quoting all these Sanskrit shlokas, and even his English was with an accent. And the first typist, you read the history of how these books came out. It's amazing. So the first 5 or 6 chapters Prabhupada typed himself, which is great because we have those. We can refer back to them. But then after that, he was dictating everything. And there was this college student who took some kind of credit for going and working in some new religion, spiritual thing that was happening in the 60s. There was all this ferment. And he wandered into the storefront, and they, Neil, can you type? Said, yeah, I can type. Said, okay, so here they gave him the dictaphone. Now you hear and you type. That was the manuscripts we got. All of these nice verses that are quoted here, he couldn't hear them. Can't blame him. It's Sanskrit language. So he just put it in a blank with some indication, So the first book that came out, of course, it was an abridged version. Probably wasn't happy with that, but we had no press. There was no BBT. There was no Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. And so we had a little production staff, but then they had to find a publisher. It was an absolute miracle. I don't have time to tell the whole story. How a famous international publisher called Macmillan actually agreed to publish Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. But not this Gita. One that was only 300 pages long with about 1/5 or less of the purports. And none of the Sanskrit verses. That was the first Gita that came out. And so we had that. And because it sold so well, the devotees were selling it, and Prabhupada was famous because Allen Ginsberg had come, and he got in the papers and everything. And so they said, okay, now we'll publish the unabridged, Anyway, it's a long story. There's so many mistakes that inevitably came in, but Prabhupada loved it when it came out. This gave so much weight to the movement. Now they have the Bhagavad Gita. People had heard about it, and for 10, 11 years, this was the main distribution book. So this has come to this now. We have these, and there's a softback version which we produced that is only 700 some odd pages. This one is almost 1,000. And it's possible to buy those in mass and to distribute them in mass cheaper than this one. And over 2,600,000 have been distributed in a few years, mostly in America. That's a lot of books, and they're going out. If you ask Damodar Kumar which book they distribute mostly when they're big books, it's this Bhagavad Gita in the softback. So this advent of the Bhagavad Gita is really so important, and the advent of Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is equally important for us, because it's now been translated into 60, 70 languages. In India, they go out by the millions. I don't know how much. At least 75% of the book distribution is being done in India now. But Prabhupada, in order to start the movement, had to leave India, because people thought, I know Krishna, and Prabhupada was just a single individual, But when he came back to India in 1970 or 71 with about 50 Western disciples, he called them the dancing white elephants. That was a spectacle. People really wanted to see. So he was able to make a lot of headway. It's a wonderful story of how the movement grew. And always central to it was the Bhagavad Gita. Devotees would read the Bhagavad Gita, repeat Prabhupada's words, they would memorize the verses. And we have, I must say, I always forget, we have been conducting a Bhagavad Gita class here for the last 30 years, since I've been here. We used to have 4 nights a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Now Thursday we have the lounge, but still Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 7:15 to 8:15, you're all invited for the Bhagavad Gita class. Now, of course, you may not be able to make it all the way over here to Pacific Beach, but it's streamed online, and you can hear it. We're just now in the 8th chapter, in these essential verses, where, every so often Krishna gives a little lesson within the Bhagavad Gita that's self-contained and is so important. So here he's talking about, at the very beginning of the book, the importance of remembering him at the end of life, at the end of this body. Don't forget, we never die. Antakale chamameva smaran mukva kalevaram yak priyade samadbhavam yasti natratra sangshaya. This summarizes the whole point of Bhakti Yoga. Whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. And in this purport and the following purport, Prabhupada emphasizes the chanting of Hare Krishna as the best way to remember Krishna now and to be able to remember him at the time of death. That's the essence of the whole process of Bhakti Yoga. How to cultivate remembrance of Krishna so that we're remembering at every moment. Then you're completely safe. Even if a lightning bolt comes and incinerates your body, you won't die, don't forget. If you just chant Hare Krishna at that time, you've achieved the perfection of life. That's the main teaching of Bhagavad Gita. We are determining our destiny by how we're forming our consciousness. And your consciousness is formed by what you hear, what you speak, what you read, what you write, who you associate with, what you do throughout your life. So every moment is important now. The human life with this advanced intelligence. He describes at the end of the 3rd chapter how now everything is topsy-turvy. Our senses are pulling us to the different sense objects and experiences. Our mind is following, this is pleasurable, this is painful. And intelligence is thinking, yes, how can I enjoy? And the soul is riding along and suffering and so-called enjoying. And the super soul is watching everything, keeping record. The super soul, Krishna, is trying to give us good instruction. But we can't hear it because we're too covered over. So he comes outside as the preceptor, as the guru, and as the book. This is Krishna speaking to us, all of us. We just have to pick it up and listen, or listen to someone who's reading it or speaking on the basis. So this was Prabhupada's ongoing mercy and gift. We can associate with the greatest devotee of the modern age by simply reading his books, hearing his lectures, which are completely available, letters, all kinds of things are available. And this Bhagavad Gita, it condenses the essential lessons of the Upanishads. Upanishads are those works that are meant to bring you closer to God. That's the meaning of Upanishad. They come closer and closer to Krishna. So this Bhagavad Gita, now he gives the next verse, he gives the general principle. Yang bhavi smarang bhavam chajachante kalevaram tam tamevai dikontaya sadatat bhava bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when one quits his body, that state one will attain without fail. So we have to watch out what we think about, isn't it? Now it's just all kinds of things, whatever strikes your fancy. I'll hit this key, that key, go here, go there. The internet is everywhere, right? It's a disaster. Unless you have a guidance, you're trying to control the mind, your own mind, and to direct it in a certain fashion, which is what the Bhagavad Gita teaches you. And therefore, Krishna gives a solution. Text 7. 5, 6, and 7. You read those 3 and you get a full lesson here. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. For Arjuna is fighting. We have different prescribed duties. Whatever our work is, we have to integrate Krishna into it so that it's more and more part of our daily life and our moment-to-moment life. With your activities dedicated to me, your mind intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. And indeed, Srila Prabhupada organized the Krishna conscious movement in such a way that someone can actually live a full-time life like that. That was the whole purpose of this, the setting up the temples and the ashrams and things. So there's something to do, like the pujaris, These deities are so beautifully taken care of by our dedicated team of pujaris. They're always feeling, oh my God, it's 3 o'clock in the morning already. I got to get up. I got to wake the deities. The responsibility. They come and there's so many things to do. They're thinking of Krishna. They're thinking of Krishna, and Krishna's reciprocating, killing so many anartas, desires in the heart that doesn't even come up anymore, because Krishna's calling. Oh, it's time to cook. It's time to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Best way to think of Krishna. So here it is, right in the Bhagavad Gita, and there's so many other nice sections like that, and every verse is essential. But 7:15, 8:15, Janardhan Prabhu, one of our other Prabhus, will show you how to log on, from your home, or even from your phone, wherever you may be. And hear the Bhagavad. Mostly I just read and make a few comments, and you're all invited. I mean, you can do a million different things at that time, but if you do that, you'll be connecting up to Krishna. And that's why he spoke the Bhagavad Gita. He spoke it to Arjuna, but through Arjuna he spoke it to all of us. And he's speaking right now. He said, listen to me. You're not that body. Pakati, what is that? Purusha pakati stohi bhunkte pakati janganan. You, the Purusha, the living entity who's trying to enjoy in this world, as you contact the different modes of nature. That's another thing you learn in Bhagavad Gita. How these different modes affect our consciousness. Goodness, passion, ignorance, it's all described here. So as you choose to associate with the modes, things in the modes, music, the different modes. We all know there's certain music will just agitate you like anything, and other music will give you a very peaceful feeling. Other music will attract you. Krishna's the original musician. What is that flute all about? He can attract everyone. Did you know, you may not know this fact, that Krishna's flute sound is manifest in the material world as the Hare Krishna mantra. That means when you chant Hare Krishna with attention and trying to chant purely, then Krishna's attracting you. You become attracted. Just like the gopis were attracted by the flute, we become attracted to Krishna through his name. This is part of the inconceivable power of Krishna. He's invested his names, but the Hare Krishna mantra is the great chanting for deliverance, with so much potency. And he can attract us away from Maya to reality, to Krishna. Maya just means phantasmagoria, illusion, that keeps us bound in this world. So Krishna spoke the Gita for us, and it's just a mere 5,000 years ago. Practically snap your fingers compared to the 8,600,000,000 years we have to wait till he comes again. So we don't want to wait that long. Let's take advantage of Krishna's words and practice, understand, strengthen our intelligence by hearing the Bhagavad Gita, and become committed to practice the principles of Bhakti Yoga, and also help others to get this message. This is the day where we ask people to help sponsor distribution of Gitas. People are out there who are hankering for this knowledge. We were down. I was down there in the park on Friday night, one of the December nights, which I discovered last year after living here for so many years. December nights, and we were doing Harinam. And then afterward, as I was getting ready to go, I met one gentleman with his boy. He was a Spanish background, or Latino, and he had a whole stack of books with him. He had this Bhagavad Gita, he had Science of Self-Realization. He'd gotten a full measure of mercy, and he was so excited. I told him, yes, we have a temple. You can Bhagavad Gita. And he'd been waiting for this knowledge. People are looking for something that can give them some solace in this world. And it's definitely Hare Krishna, process of Bhakti Yoga, and it's so nicely explained by Srila Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita as it is. So I've gone over time. We have a special program because we have, as you noticed, there is going to be a nice sacrifice. So there'll be more. I think we're going to have a little presentation about the sponsorships and things like that after the fire sacrifice. But thank you very much for attending, and let's celebrate the Bhagavad Gita, and read the Bhagavad Gita, hear Bhagavad Gita, and distribute Bhagavad Gita. Oh, I forgot the mantra. Learn it, live it, and give it. Learn the Bhagavad Gita, live according to its tenets, and give it to others. This is Prabhupada's program. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.